Sup guys, Fat Archon here, bringing another 40k video. Today we're going over one of the contenders for best army in the game, Custodes. These guys, they just swept a super major, I believe it was. I believe it's called the Tacoma Open. Had something like, it was around like 400 players. They got first and second place. First place went 8-0. 8 wins against some of the best armies and the best players in the world. Yeah, I would say that speaks for itself. There's a lot of things that make these guys pop, but one of the main ones is going to be their abundance of fight first. If I'm not mistaken, they can give 3 different units fight first each turn, which is just insane. If you yourself are playing a melee army and you run into Custodes, good luck. You really gotta think that through. Like, how the hell are you gonna get through that? Maybe if you have your own fight first, like, maybe you could work it out some way, but even then, the quality of the attacks that they're putting out and just their base profiles are gonna make it insane. These guys are gonna be really freaking hard to chew through. Speaking of profiles, so the old adage remains true. The old adage of each individual Custodes is basically a character for another army. Yeah, that pretty much holds true. So, like, the basicest stat line, so the most basic troop here, aside from, like, Sisters of Silence, you're talking T6, which is fantastic, 2-up save, amazing, 4-up invul, oh my goodness, 3 wounds each, like, yeah, man, good luck with that. The basic guys, these guys are only 45 points per model, really not that bad in the scheme of things when you're considering the profile and the rules and all that sort of stuff. Something to bear in mind, too, they always hit on 2s across the board, so a lot of times you'll look at the profiles and be like, that's not that many attacks, like, that's really not that good, my army seems way better, but you gotta realize that when you toss on some of the other rules they get on top of that, these guys are getting damn near 100% hit rate, which just means, again, that quality, the quality over quantity in their case, the quality of those attacks that are, like, consistently getting through, yeah, they'll chew you up pretty good. So, yeah, definitely an army to be on the lookout for. What's funny is, like, I don't know, I don't think they seem, like, especially broken. Like, okay, they have some really strong combos, and the issue is other armies are, like, underpowered, really, but, like, I'm not even sure what you could, like, fix for them. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys have some suggestions below on, like, what could change with them, but, like, I don't know. Yeah, they're just a wild army. They're really good. They're great for beginners. If you're like newer to 40k and you're considering army, you're not really sure, and you like the style of Custodes or whatever, you can't go wrong with them. They're an elite. They're like a hyper elite army, so you really don't need that many models to get into Custodes, which just makes them great for newer players. It's kind of cheap. They're easy to paint too. You just paint them gold and freaking wash them. So pretty simple there. I like them a lot. Briefly, a real quick channel update. So we're almost to 1,000 subscribers, guys. We got less than 100 to go. We're gaining subscribers every single day. We're getting like a couple dozen, like 2 to 3 dozen subscribers, which is nuts. Freaking love it. Thank you guys again for sticking around and checking out the videos. If you're not already a subscriber, do please consider liking and subscribing the video. It really does mean a lot to me. Kind of, continues to give me the drive to keep doing this. Also, too, like, all right, if this is the future, I apologize in advance, but I am doing a contest at the moment, a giveaway, in fact. I'm giving away one of my Greater Brass Scorpion Acorn. So if you're interested in that model, check out my last video I just made, and just, read the rules, enter, it's really easy, just leave a freaking comment, and you might win a freaking $400, I believe it is, Forge World model. So yeah, just want to toss that out there. Anyways, on to the army. So, for army rules, these guys have a great army rule, especially when it comes to the whole, the thing I mentioned earlier, being really good in melee. So they got Martial Kata. Basically, at the start of each fight phase, you get to choose between 1 of 3 stances, and they stay active until the rest of that phase. That's actually awesome, because that means you get to choose one for both your fight phase on your turn, as well as the opponent's turn on their fight phase, so you can choose whatever's best. Maybe you don't somehow have fight first or whatever, you can choose a more defensive option. Otherwise, you'll probably go for the more offensive ones in the hopes that you wipe out that unit first. So of the stances, so again, you got 3 to choose from. The first one's going to be Captera stance. Basically, each time a melee attack targets that unit, you subtract 1 from the hit roll. That is fantastic. When you have 2-up saves and a 4-up invul and T6 and all that other fancy stuff going on, that is great, man. To add even more, like, difficulty on wounding them on top of that, super good to have. That's one I'd be tempted to use on the opponent's turn often, or if I don't think I can wipe out their unit or do enough damage that that I'm afraid I'm going to take a lot of damage back. Definitely you keep that one in mind. Definitely one to consider. The next one, this is probably my favorite one, and probably the one most people will use the most often, Dakatari stance. Basically, your weapons get sustained hits 1, so that plays into the whole getting a 100% hit rate. When you're hitting on 2s and then 6s explodes, that's pretty much equivalent to a 100% hit rate. Insane, that's really good. Once more, you got really good quality attacks to have practically every single one hit. Excellent, 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 excellent. Definitely one that I would recommend doing as like the default. And then you got the final stance. This one's also valid as well. Rindax stance. Essentially, you get lethal hits. So that'll be especially good versus like vehicles and knights and that sort of stuff. If there's one thing that these guys struggle with, it is anti-tank. They don't have the highest strength, funnily enough, even though they're like little like, you know, super soldiers or whatever. Not the highest strength, not always the highest AP either, to be honest. So being able to wound knights like automatically on 6s and whatnot, definitely valid, definitely strong to have, so don't forget you got that. For detachment rule, this is exceptional for Custodes. They got Aegis of the Emperor. Long story short, you get a 4-up feel no pain versus mortal wounds. So, like, sure, you don't see mortal wounds like that often. It's a relatively rare rule, but that has always been one of Custodes' like biggest weaknesses. Anything that bypasses that excellent 2-up save, 4-up invul, like that can hurt. Now all of a sudden, nope, that's not really an issue anymore. Automatically half of those I'm basically ignoring. So have fun trying to use your mortal wound bomb. By the way, if I roll really hot, like sucks to be you. So that is actually an exceptional one to have. Definitely powerful. And then stratagem. So I said on my GSC video, I'll say it again. I always say, oh, this army has the best stratagem. I know I said the last one did, but this one actually does. All right, Custodes, like, they do have some of the very best. Maybe not the tip-top best, but it's definitely up there. Something you need to bear in mind while we're going through these as well, they have plenty of ways to make stratagems completely free. So, like, even if something seems expensive, which a few of these are, really not that big a deal. So, the first one they got is really good, Slayer of Nightmares. So this is fight phase only. You can choose any one of your Adeptus Custodes until the end of the phase. If you're targeting a monster or a vehicle, you add 1 to the wound roll. We just went over how that's one of their like main weaknesses. So all of a sudden, being able to get the +1 to wound on a vehicle, potentially that like literally will double your damage. If it's like a knight where you're wounded on 6s, potentially, all of a sudden you're wounded on 5s. Yeah, man, very strong to have. That's one you'll use all the time, because again, you're going to struggle versus them, especially in like melee for the most part. So don't forget you got Slayer of Nightmares. The next one, this one's like, I don't really care for this one. Avenge the Fallen. So again, so this will be start of the fight phase. You choose one of your units that's below starting strength, and basically, until the end of the phase, you add 1 to their attack's characteristic. If you're below half strength, you add 2 to the attack's characteristic. It is cheap, it's only 1 CP, and I could see some use, so like, if you're fighting another units that's like mostly dead or half dead, and you really need to like, you know, kill them or whatever, okay, like maybe you would use that one, but for the most part, you got way better stratagems. Your CP is still like precious. This is an army that's going to blow through it, even though you have the free stratagems and whatnot, so could be better. The next one, this is one of the better ones, Unwavering Sentinels. Start of the fight phase, you choose one of your Custodes, excluding Sisters, and that's within range of an objective marker, so that is important. Until the end of the phase, you get fight first. Hot diggity dog. Again, with the how powerful their profiles and their weapons and abilities and all that stuff is, being able to add a fight first on top of that really knocks these guys up a gear. They would have been just like good in melee. You toss fight first on top of that, they're like exceptional, if not the best in melee. It does kind of stink you have to be within range and objective marker, but really that shouldn't be that hard to do. And with your defenses, how good they are, like, yeah, man, just plant yourself on objective and, you know, bait your opponent to come in there. Like, come at me, bro. So definitely a good one. That's one you're going to be using like all the time, especially with that free stratagem. Next up, we got yet another exceptional one, Arcane Genetic Alchemy. So this is your opponent shooting or fight phase. That's excellent. Right after they choose a target, you can choose one of your Adeptus Custodes infantry, and until the end of the phase, you -1 from the damage characteristic. That is one of the more powerful ones like in the game, especially when you consider the army it's on. So, alright, so 3 wound infantry, 3 damage weapons are going to suck. Like, you're not going to want to, have those going against you. You knock it down to 2 damage each, damage, in a sense, you're halving their damage output, because all of a sudden, instead of 1 each, it takes 2 to get through to you. Insane. Even on 2 damage weapons, you knock them down to 1 damage. Again, that is literally having the having the damage or whatever. That's another one you're going to want to use all the time. If something spooky or something scary is about to hit your guys and wipe out a squad or something, yeah, just use it. And you know what? Why not make it free while you're at it? Yeah, insane. One of the better ones in the game. Vigil Unending. I super like this one as well. In your command phase, you choose one of your infantry, and basically you can bring 1 destroyed model, excluding characters. You can bring them back to life with full wounds remaining. Some of your models are like 65 points, if not more, each. I would pay 1 CP for a 65-point model. Like, I think that's a fair trade. Again, though, like I mentioned earlier, like, CP is extremely precious for this army. You really don't want to be spending it unless you, like, absolutely need to. So, truthfully, as good as that is, I don't think you'll use it that often. That said, it's there if you need it. If it's, like, vital, or it gets you closer to the objective, maybe you're 2 inches away, all of a sudden you bring 1 guy, and all of a sudden you're in there. And I believe you can do that before scoring, because it just says your command phase, period. That's actually, like, pretty valuable in that sense. So, again, that's one of those ones, like, try not to forget, there will be times when that, like, wins you the game, potentially. And lastly, we got Sworn Guardians. I also like this one a lot. Weird. So this is in your movement phase, period. So anytime in your movement phase, you choose any one of your Adeptus Custodes units that's not the Sisters of Silence, and basically you get sticky objectives. What's awesome about that, you get to do that like at any point in your turn. So maybe the start of, well, any point of your movement phase. Maybe you do that at the start of your movement phase, use that CP, and then you walk off the objective and get to, go charge the enemy, whatever you got to do. That is very powerful. Again, you're a hyper elite army, so you're not going to have that many units normally. So all of a sudden, be able to have the sticky objectives for only a single CP, yeah, that's pretty strong. Again, like, are you going to use it that often with how precious the CP is? Yeah, probably. I don't know. I do think it's really good. So don't at all forget you got that one, and don't forget you can use at any point in your movement phase. So all in all, almost all of those stratagems are like excellent. So yeah, man, Custodes looking pretty good just on those alone. For enhancements, so these ones are all right. 2 of them are pretty decent. The other 2 I don't really care that much for. For the ones that are like good, in my opinion, so the first one, Veiled Blade. You get to add 2 to the attacks characteristic of your melee weapon, so that's pretty good. You put on like a blade champion or something who does a decent amount of damage as it is, suddenly does even more decent amount of damage. Not bad at all. And then also on top of that, once per battle, you can triple its objective control value. That's not as like powerful as it may seem. I believe most of the characters only got 2 objective control, so you're only bumping that up to 6. Like, yes, there will be times when that will get you the objective over the enemy or whatever, so it does have a lot of value in that regard, but it's not something to like rely on. The other one I really like, and this is the one you'll probably bring like most lists, at least if you got the points for it, Ceaseless Hunter. So what this one does, the bearer's unit is eligible to shoot and declare charge in a turn while it fell back. That is super powerful, again, with hyper elite army. So stuff like screens and that sort of things that like are blocking you, trying to keep you away from the juicy bits, all of a sudden they don't really matter that much. And in fact, you kind of like them because, oh yeah, I'm gaining the movement on the charge from you, and now I'm just going to go around you. So definitely good there. The other part I like a lot as well, it's once per battle, but when an enemy ends a normal, advanced, or fallback move within 9 inches of you, you get to make a normal move of up to 6 inches, so long as you're not within engagement range of something else. One of your weaknesses is how slow most of your units are going to be. All of a sudden, like, it's not a D6 or any of that, you just move 6 inches, so you'd be like doubling your movement in that regard. Definitely powerful to have. I like Ceaseless Hunter a lot. That's one I'd probably bring most lists. So, we're not even on profiles, and already the army rules are like crazy good. Definitely top notch just on those alone. But once we get into profiles as well, like, oh my goodness, we're going into 6th gear here. Speaking of profiles, so starting with the HQs, we got Mr. Trajan Valorous himself. I would nominate him for like characters in the game. I nominate him as like one of the very best in the game. When you consider his point cost and like what he's bringing to the army, yeah, this guy's nuts. So he's only 145 points for a Custode, especially in HQ. Like, that's not bad in the least bit. That's quite fair. For profile, so it is only 6-inch move. That's going to be a common theme for pretty much all the infantry. T6, fantastic. 2-up save, 4-up invul, so just like all the rest. 7 wounds, pretty good. He's got 5-up leadership, quite high, and 2 objective control. For core abilities, so I should have mentioned in the beginning, pretty much every infantry, I'm pretty sure, like literally every infantry aside from Sisters, is going to have a deep strike, so you can get them where you need them. He also has a Feel No Pain 5-up, which is fantastic. For his weaponry, so his range weapon, really nothing to write home about. It is assault, so you got that, but Watcher's Axe, 24-inch range, so decent range, 2 attacks, hitting on 2s of course, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 3 damage, so that is cool that you're tossing out some 3 damage. I like the fact it's assault as well, because that does mean you get to advance and still shoot, but you're not bringing this guy for his range, you're bringing him for his melee. So in melee, the Watcher's Axe is going to be 6 attacks, strength 10, which is fantastic. Custodians struggle versus vehicles, all of a sudden that's not as big a deal. Minus 2 AP and then 3 damage each. So, you know, you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. You know, 6 3 damage attacks, like, I like that. That's quite a good amount. But then it gets even better. So, first of all, he's got Captain General. While he's leading a unit, you can ignore any or all modifiers to the characteristics of models in that unit, or rolls for tests you make, excluding armor saves. So that's cool. That means, like, even if you were to somehow get battle shocked, you'd still have your objective control, and even better, you are always hitting on 2s no matter what, which is great. You know, getting -1s to hit would be like very valuable versus Custodians. All of a sudden, this makes that not even an option, at least for the unit he's in. For his other ability, and the reason you do bring him, so Moment Shackle. It is once per battle, so you do only get to use it once. The start of the fight phase, you get to choose between 1 of 3 abilities, and all 3 of them are fantastic. So, the first one, instead of 6 attacks, you can give this guy 12 3 damage attacks. All of a sudden, he himself is, like, chewing through battle tanks and that sort of stuff. Again, this plays into me nominating him as, like, one of the best characters. That'd be what? That'd be 36 damage potential he'd be able to do on a single 145-point model. Like, that's crazy. That might be one that you pick if you charged a unit and you are, like, pretty confident that you'll be able to wipe them out. Like, yeah, that's probably the one you should pick. Don't forget, too, that you're most likely going to have sustained hits on top of that. So, on average, you'll get 2 more hits as well. So that's pretty crazy. Next one of the best saves in the entire game, you can give him a 2-up invul. Again, it's only once per battle and only lasts the phase, so, like, you know, let's not get too wild here. But a 2-up invul, like, yeah, man, he's already T6 and all the other things on top of it. Good luck getting through that. It is funny, though, like, that is extremely powerful, yet I think that's the one you're going to use the least often. Maybe if it's like, maybe if you somehow messed up and he's all on his own or something, okay, I could see that. He can tank a million shots, but I think what you're mostly going to use is actually the last one. Models in his unit can have the Fight First ability for free. No 2CP, no none of that stuff. You just get Fight First. I do think that's going to be the one that you use most of the time. He can be attached to Guard and Warden, so he is, like, somewhat limited. That said, those are some of your best units. Spoiler alert. So I think the way to run him, me personally, I would probably do a 10-man squad of Guard or maybe Wardens. Attach this guy to it. Yeah, we're not having any problems with anybody we happen to touch in melee. They're just goners. I'm going to hit him first, or I'm going to hit him with just this guy. This guy alone is going to wipe out, you know, all 10 of your Possessed or your Marines or whatever you got going on. Yeah, Trajan, he's easy to rate. This guy's insane. Definitely goes, like, top of S tier. One of the better models in the game. Super duper good, and his model's sick, and, you know, best of all, he's cheap, man. This guy's what, he's like $45 or something like that. So if you got Custodians, 100% get this guy. Like, don't even think about it, just get him. You could probably convert him if you really want to. All right, next up, Blade Champion. So again, we got an excellent character. You're gonna see a theme coming up here with really freaking good characters. So, similar profile to Trajan, 6-inch move, T6, 2-up, 4-up, only quote-unquote 6 wounds, 6 leadership. This guy has insanely good abilities. He also has a really good, like, weapon profile. So his melee weapon has 3 different profiles you can choose from. First one's going to be Behemoth. So this is precision, so this is sort of your anti-character. 6 attacks, strength 7, minus 2 damage each, so that'll slice up most characters in the game. The precision's great. You happen to get him in a squad in a combat with an important unit, yeah, let's just kill the leader in him. Next up, he's got Hurricanus. This is sort of anti-chaff, which again is like super important for Custodes. Move blocking is something that's really going to hurt these guys. Being able to chew through them, definitely good to have. So sustained hits 1, 9 attacks, strength 5, only 1 AP and 1 damage each. So not the most like damage ever, but again, this helps you clear up screens or anything else, any other small units that might be in your way. Last up, he's got Victus. So this is the big stuff monsters vehicles. Dev wounds, fantastic. Only 5 attacks, strength 6, minus 3 AP, some of the better AP, and 3 damage each. Super duper good. I should mention, this guy's only 100 points, so he's quite cheap. Getting 6 3 damage attacks on a 100-point model. Yeah, we like seeing that. For his abilities, though, so that's why you really bring this guy. So, first one, Martial Inspiration. While he's leading a unit, you can reroll advance and charge rolls. In addition, once per battle, you can also you can advance and charge. Both of those insanely valuable. Again, you guys are kind of slow. Your infantry only 6-inch move, like across the board. All of a sudden, being able to re-roll those charges helps, helps with the consistency, helps ensure that you're getting in and making your points back. Definitely need to make your points back if you're running a hyper elite army like this. So we like that a lot. That's not even to mention the advance and charge. Again, ultra powerful to give to the entire unit. Definitely want to bring this guy. And then the second ability, Legacy of Combat. So you can target his unit with a heroic intervention stratagem for free, even if somebody else uses it. Again, that plays in the whole getting the movement. Enemy unit comes within range of you. Yeah, let's go ahead and just heroic intervention them. Maybe you can protect some Sisters of Silence, whatever you need to do. Very, very powerful character. There's some minor debate if this is the best character for the Custodes. I'll be honest, me personally, I don't really think so. I think I'd rather bring a shield captain, who we'll get to here in a moment, but there's a super valid argument for this guy being one of the best, or the best, period, especially when you consider the enhancements and all that sort of stuff you can toss on him. He can be attached to the same units as Trajan, so guard or wardens. I like this guy a boatload. I definitely don't think he goes above Trajan, but he is S tier. He helps with some of the things you struggle with the most, that movement, and he can carry his own in melee just on his own, the amount of damage he's doing. I like that guy quite a bit. Definitely goes way up there. Next up, we got Shield Captain. So I was just talking about this guy. So same profile, the T6, 2 up, 6 wounds, all that sort of jazz. For weapons, so you can choose between the Castellan Axe, the Spear, or the Sentinel Blade. I don't think you'd ever choose the Sentinel Blade on this guy, so we'll ignore that one. Normally, so for normal Custodes, for the Guard, I would strongly recommend the Spear. For this guy, he gets a few more attacks, at least in melee. I kind of think that makes the Axe more valid, makes it worthy of consideration. So for ranged, the Castellan Axe, it's going to be 24-inch range, 2 attacks, hitting on 2s, of course. I'm not sure why I mentioned that. Strength 4, minus 1 AP, so it could be better, but whatever. 2 damage each. The Spear is identical. Both of them are assault, by the way, which is very important. So okay ranged, on a character, it's really not that good. He has 120 points, so relatively spendy. Not really for custodians, but relatively expensive. Now melee, though, that's where this guy really pops. So if you go with the axe, that'd be 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, not 2s. Strength 9, only minus 1 AP, but 3 damage each. The 3 damage, pretty valuable to have. We did see the other characters bring that in spades, so maybe it's not as valuable as you normally think, but that strength 9 is pretty good. All of a sudden you're wounding Marines on 2s, so that's a pretty valid thing, and with 6 attacks, that's more than the normal guys get, so I do think that's worthy consideration. I will say you should get on Unit Crunch and do the math hammer. Potentially the Spear still edges it out, because the Spear is going to have 1 more attack, hitting on 2s, only strength 7, but minus 2 AP, 2 damage each, so that is excellent as well. 7 2 damage attacks on a character like this, not bad at all. That said, his abilities are why you're going to bring this guy every single time. 100% every single list you run needs at least one of these guys, if not 3 of them. First ability is going to be Master of the Stances. So at the start of the fight phase, you can choose one Kata stance. Until the end of the phase, you get that stance on top of all the others. So that's fantastic. You can have lethal hits and sustained hits. So every 6 you hit is both going to wound and explode. That is insanely powerful. That is one of the better combos you can get. And that would be the one that I would do most of the time. That said, you could also do the -1 to hit on top of the sustained hits as well, in case you want to have a little more resilience. He also, once per battle, you can just give them all 3 stances. That's going to be fantastic. You're going to use that, so the first time you get into melee, when you got like your full unit and they got their full unit, like, yeah, just use that automatically, unless they're like, you know, a so-so unit that you're fighting. So that alone, like, makes this guy worth bringing in my book. But you add on top of that Strategic Mastery. So once per battle round, you can select 1 model from your army with this ability. So if you did run 3 of them, you only get to use it once still per battle round. But you can use a stratagem on them for free, even if somebody else had used that stratagem that phase. Hot damn, man. That is definitely something you're going to use for that fight first. Like, that's going to be the main way to do it. And again, okay, let's say you got Trajan going up, you got a shield captain with the guard, and then you got another shield captain. So Trajan does his fight first. These guys spend 2 CP and fight first, and then this guy uses his ability and gets fight first. So 3 units, only 2 CP. Like, yeah, it's a little spinny, but you're going to be saving up for it anyways. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like I mentioned, this guy's like an auto-include. You could change out his like axe or spear for the sentinel blade and a shield. The shield would give you a +1 to your wounds characteristic. Not sure why I mentioned that, because you would never do that in a million years. Like, do not do that unless you're like doing a meme list or something. But this guy, ooh, does he go above Trajan? You know, honestly, the fact that I genuinely think you bring him every single list, like no questions asked, at least if you run an infantry, I am going to put him very tip-top of S tier. I do think he's that valuable. This is one of the best, like, best buff units in the game. Just for the strategy I have access to, makes that, yeah, one of the best in the entire game. Next up, we got Shield Captain in Allarus Terminator armor. So, what's cool about this guy, exact same cost, even though he's like slightly buffed in the Terminator armor. So 120 points. He does only have a 5-inch move, so he does lose a little bit of movement, but he's freaking T7 with 7 wounds. Super good. A lot of armies like that are strength 3 potentially are like really going to struggle for this guy. They're going to hate him a lot. For his weaponry, so what's cool about the Allarus Terminators is they all get a ballistic grenade launcher. So that's going to be an 18-inch range blast, which is fantastic. Again, is helping with those screens and that chaff. D6 attacks, hit on 2s, of course. Strength 4, -1, 1 damage each. So again, not the best ever, but blast, being able to clear out infantry, we like that a lot. He also can choose between the axe and the spear, so just like the other guy. With him, again, either are valid. I like slightly lean for the characters. I slightly lean towards the axe personally, just because I get the more attacks and I like that strength. But I think the spear is like equally as valid, so either option work. For his abilities, so he's got Defiant to the Last. When he's destroyed by a melee attack, if he hasn't fought yet, you roll a d6. On a 2-up, he gets to fight, so fight after death. Super good. This guy's relatively expensive, so you're basically like guaranteeing you get your points out of this guy, at least if you get him into combat. On a 2-up, you're going to get that like the vast majority of the time. That's really good. On top of that, he also gets Strategic Mastery, so same as the last guy, gets the free stratagem. Putting on Terminators of all units, like arguably that could be more valuable. I like it a lot. I do have to pick like who goes in first place or whatever. I think it's the regular one, for sure, but this guy isn't far behind him. I like Trajan a lot, so we'll just say he's like tied with Trajan. I'll put him behind him, just so Trajan doesn't get offended or whatever. But yeah, all 4 of these guys, in fact, are pretty equal when it comes to how good they are. Definitely a damn good unit, especially a damn good unit you can attach them to. Alright, next up, Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jetbike. So in 9th and 8th edition, this was like, you always saw this guy. He was always around. He was one of the best models that the Custodes had access to. Unfortunately, in 9th, he kinda, well, maybe not him, but the Praetors got kinda nerfed a little, and not nearly as good as they were. That said, so he's a little more expensive than the others. He's 145. He does have a boosted profile, like somewhat. So 12-inch move, very valuable. Only T6. I kind of wish he was T7, but whatever. 2-up save, of course. 7 wounds, so that's pretty good. Unfortunately, their weapons like aren't as good as they used to be. So you got the Hurricane Bolter, so it is Rapid Fire 3 and Twin Linked, so that's kind of cool. Only 18-inch range. Baseline is going to be 3 attacks, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage, so that's really kind of meh. Again, it'll help with the chaff, help with the screen, so you do have that. He also, though, has a salvo launcher, so this is 24-inch range, only a single shot, but strength 9, -2 AP, 3 damage each. Sucks it's only a single shot, sucks it's only strength 9, but the rest of it, that's not too bad. You'll kill an elite infantry every now and then. For melee, he does have the Interceptor Lance. So it does have the Lance rule, so you get +1 to wound when you charge. 6 attacks, strength 7, -2, 2 damage each. Again, kind of sucks it's not higher strength. Strength 8 would have, like, helped a bit. Then again, don't forget you get the +1 to wound, so I guess it's not, like, as terrible. Again, though, this guy costs more than the others and doesn't do as much damage necessarily, so that kind of sucks. For abilities, though, so he does have Sweeping Advance, so that's why you bring this guy, and potentially why you might bring some Praetors still. While this model is leading a unit, each time they consolidate, you can consolidate up to 6 inches instead of 3. That is actually, like, that is really good to have, because consolidation is one of the ways that GW screwed melee armies in 10th edition. Now you have to end in engagement range or within range of an objective. All of a sudden, and the biggest issue with that is, like, you only have 3 inches, so a lot of times that's, like, impossible. Now with 6 inch, like, that's a pretty good range, so you have an okay chance of being able to actually consolidate onto an objective, preferably. You don't normally want to consolidate into another unit, although it all depends on the situation and the unit. On top of that, though, and the reason you bring this guy, so once per battle, at the end of any fight phase, so your opponents, for example, if you're within engagement range, you can make a fallback move, as though as your movement phase. If you're not within engagement range, you can make a normal move, as though as your movement range. So, fantastic, man. You get a 12-inch move on your opponent's turn after the fight phase, so near when the turn is over. Very strong, very valuable, helps you get on the objectives, helps you get the board control, helps with the position, helps with all sorts of stuff. That alone kind of makes the Praetors, like, worth considering, at least. You know, do you still do it? It's debatable, but it does make them, like, actually usable. On top of that, he does have Strategic Mastery, just like the others, so you can use a stratagem for free, so lots of value right there. So he himself is pretty decent. Like, that is not bad at all for the 145 points. The unit you attach him to, not the best ever. So, you know, kind of sad in that regard. Unfortunately, when you have to consider the unit he gets attached to, and the fact that just the other ones are just better in general, in my opinion, I don't think he goes, like, super high up. I don't even think he goes A+ tier. I think he's just A. He makes the Praetors, like, you know, usable. But when you consider the fact that he's kind of, like, chained down to them or whatever, yeah, unfortunately drags him down a little. Not a bad unit at all. Still worthy of, like, considering for your list if you need the speed or you know, whatever he brings. You know, not a bad choice, but there are better options. Okay, and then the other named guy, Mr. Valerian. I don't really care for this guy. First of all, he doesn't have Deep Strike, which kind of stinks. Only 115 points, so relatively cheap. Very, same profiles as Shield Captain, so 6 wounds, T6. For his ranged weapon, so he does have Gnosis. So it is Assault, 24-inch range, 3 attacks, only strength 4, only -1 AP, but 2 damage each, so it's okay. You'll kill a couple of Marines with that. In melee, though, so Gnosis melee, 7 attacks, so decent amount, strength 8, great, -3 AP, fantastic, 2 damage each, so he's pretty good in melee. He'll slice up some infantry pretty good that way. He does have a Feel No Pain 6 up, so not the best, but better than nothing. For his ability, so Golden Laurels, while he's leading a unit, each time a melee attack targets that unit, you worsen the AP by 1. That's actually really strong. I mean, come on, you got the 2-up save and the 4-up invul, so, like, definitely good to have. That said, the 4-up invul, like, kind of negates that a little. Also, too, this is 10th edition, like, not many weapons have more than 2 AP. 2 AP is, like, pretty good now, so not that often you get to use it. Also, too, I'd way rather have Strategic Mastery, which, unfortunately, this guy doesn't have. His second ability, Hero of the Lightning's Gate. So, once per battle round, you can reroll 1 hit, wound, or saving roll. So that's cool. You can, like, you know, help guarantee a wound, or help guarantee that you don't take a wound. So that's okay right there. In addition, once per battle, after making a hit, wound, or save, you can turn it into a 6. I mean, he doesn't have any D6 damage like anything, but again, like, you know, this time you can guarantee that you get a hit, or a wound, or a save, so that's alright, like, you know, helps him last a little longer, or do a little more damage. Like I said, I don't really care for him that much. He's not bad at all, especially for 115 points. Like, there's nothing wrong with that for the cost. I just think you got way better choices up there. Do I put him above the Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike? You know, I don't. I don't think I do. I'd way rather have that strategic mastery, the free stratagem, especially for custodies of all armies. I think that's way more valuable. I'm gonna put him. I do think like he's not bad. He still goes an A, but yeah, he's kind of like lower A in my humble opinion. Again, you got way better choices than this guy, so I don't think you consider him first unless you're doing like Garage Hammer or something. All right, next up, we're up to the Sisters of Silence. So first of all, we got Alea. She's pretty cheap. She's only 80 points. She does have a kind of crap profile, sorta, especially for the army you're bringing her in. So 6-inch move, only T3. Only a 3-up save and a 5-up invul, so not the best. 4 wounds, so snipers will kind of eat her up. She is leadership 6, so at least you got that. She's melee only, so you got the Somnus. It is anti-psyker 4-up and devastating wounds. Wish it was precision, but can't win them all. 4 attacks, luckily hitting on 2s. Strength 6, -3, 3 damage each. So for an 80-point character, that's not bad in the least bit. -3 AP and 3 damage, both of those are fantastic. For abilities, she's got a bunch of them. So first of all, she's got a 5-up Feel No Pain, so that's pretty good. Sadly, only 4 boons, but potentially I'll keep her alive. She does also have Scout 6-inch, so long as the unit you attach her with has Scouts as well, they'll get some extra movement in the beginning. Again, Custodians struggle with that sort of stuff, so that's pretty helpful right there. For datasheet abilities, so Tactical Perception. While she's leading a unit, they get Fight First. Hot diggity dog. All of a sudden now we got 4 units per turn that can get Fight First. That's actually pretty hilarious and would almost make me want to run her just for that alone. The next one's going to be Tenacious Spirit. So while she's leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can add 1 to the hit roll if you're below starting strength. If you're below half strength, you also add 1 to the wound roll. She can only be attached to the Sisters of Silence, of course. Should have been obvious. So that does help because they don't have the best strength ever. So definitely, you know, pretty helpful. Also, too, they don't always hit on 2s or any of that stuff, too. So that also helps, you know, helps get your point efficiency. They're really freaking cheap as well. So definitely a good one to have. Lastly, you got Daughter of the Abyss. So all the sisters are going to have this. Basically, they get a Feel No Pain 3-up against psychic abilities, or psychic attacks, excuse me. That's not going to come up very often. Like, we've gone over this a bunch of times. You don't see that many psychic armies, but when it does come up, these will be one of your premier units. Just shove them in 1,000 Suns' face or whatever and say, hey, deal with me. Sure, they'll probably still wipe the unit just because, you know, the saves aren't the best and whatnot, but it's going to take a lot of firepower to do it, and there's a really good chance that they still survive. So she's 80 points. I don't think the whole point of Sisters and Custodians, like, you have way better profiles to choose over Sisters, unless you're doing like a meme list or something. So their whole point is being cheap. I don't think you want to ruin that by adding a character to it. There is like a combo with like the Witch Seekers that potentially you could do with her, but even then, I kind of think the next person's gonna be way better at that. So Alea, she's not bad at all when you consider the cost and the like damage she's doing and everything. She's not terrible. I think she's just solid B. If you're running a casual list with a bunch of sisters, sure, toss her in there. Otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't. I'd leave her at home, to be honest. Next up, we got Knight Centura, so a little cheaper, only 75 points. Exact same profile as the last lady, T3, 3-up save, 5-up invul, all that sort of stuff. She does have a master-crafted bolt gun, so that's chill. Rapid fire 1, 24-inch range, only 1 attack, but strength 4, no AP, sadly, 2 damage, so not too terrible. I'm not sure, can she have both? Okay, so she has to choose between either the Great Blade or either of those. She can't show, she only gets one of these weapons. Her next choice would be Witch Seeker Flamer. So it's a flamer, ignores cover, auto hit, only 12-inch range, D6 attacks, strength 4, no AP, single damage. It's not the best ever, but it's a flamer. With the Overwatch strat, you add that on top of Witch Seekers, which potentially you'd run her with. Not too shabby at all. Last up for melee, your last option, you got Executioner Great Blade. So again, anti-psyker 4-up. By the way, the sisters hate psychers, if you didn't already know. Devastating wounds, only 3 attacks, hit on 2s, luckily, strength 5, -2, 2 damage each. So not bad, really not that many attacks though, so like I wouldn't expect that much from her. Also too, again, I wish she had precision, but you know, it's okay. For abilities, so she does have Scout 6-inch, so again, if you attach her to a unit with Scouts, you'll be able to get up the board a little quicker. Otherwise, for data sheets, she got Seeker's Instincts. This is the reason to bring her, in my opinion. While she's leading the unit, you can add 2-inch to their move characteristic, and 2 to their advance and charge rolls. All three of those are fantastic. Movement wins games. Being able to make your charges also can win the game. So all three of those, ultra valuable to have. She's only 75 points. Like, on most armies, if my army had the opportunity to bring a character that did that, yeah, I would consider it, like, heavily. She does have that Daughter of Abyss, so the 3-up Feel No Pain versus psychic attacks. And then finally, you got Corner the Quarry. Each time an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, that's within engagement range wants to fall back, they have to take a Desperate Escape test. If they're Battle Shock, they take -1 to that. That's okay. If you get them in with a really expensive unit that really doesn't want to be dealing with, like, cheap little sisters, cheap little chaff, and actually wants to, like, get the meaty stuff, like, yeah, man, you're going to have to roll some tests if you want to run away. So, not too bad, especially when you consider, like, how cheap she is. She's definitely, I would say she's way better than Aaliyah. That extra movement, get them up to 8-inch move, and don't forget you got the scouts potentially, like, all of those are great. Again, though, same issue. I'm not sure, like, sisters are cheap. That's the whole point of them. Do you really want to make them more expensive? It does help with the consistency. That plus 2-inch move, like, is fantastic. So again, if you're going sisters heavy for some reason, like, yes, consider her. But I think she still has to go in B tier. I'll put her very top of B tier for now, at least. But yeah, again, I think you got better options as good as she is. Ooh, all right, on to the infantry. We're starting off with a banger here. So, Custodian Guard, these guys are battle line. They're some of the best battle line in the game. You gotta think, too, what's really interesting about, them being battle line, that means Agents of the Imperium, you can attach Inquisitor characters to this unit if you really wanted to. Like, you won't. You'll put a shield captain with them, like, almost every single time, or a blade champion. But, you do have an option. Again, if you're playing Garage Hammer or Beer Hammer or whatever, consider an Inquisitor. You can give them, like, can't be shot out of 18-inch range, all that sort of fun stuff. Profile, so these are your basic freaking infantry. And again, you got the T6, the 2-up, 3 wounds each, 2 objective control. That's fantastic. One of the best things about these guys, too, is that they can be run in squads between, like, 4 to 10. So you can bring 4, I believe you can bring 5, you can bring 9 or 10, so you got a bunch of options there. So you need to go MSU and cheap, or personally, what I personally would like to run, I would like to do the big blobs. As expensive as they are, you gotta think with all the, like, stratagems and abilities and all that other jazz you can toss on top of it, like, you get a lot more value out of that. But either method is valid. I will say the Tacoma list, the list that won that Super Major, he brought, like, I believe it was 3 or 4, like, max-size squads of these guys. I believe it was 3, actually. So, definitely, something to bear in mind. For weaponry, so they basically only got the Guardian Spear. You can give one of them the shield that comes with the Sentinel Blade and the Misericordia. And actually, I do think that's valid. We'll get to that in a second. The Guardian Spear, though, so pretty basic ranged-wise. 24-inch range, 2 attacks, only strength 4, only -1, but 2 damage each. So not bad at all. They are kind of spendy. They're 45 points per model, so a tidbit spendy, but it's not the worst thing ever. Again, you'll kill Marines and anything lesser than them pretty easily. If you do go for the Sentinel Blade, so the shield, that's going to be half the range, so only 12-inch range, but it is pistol. I should mention both of these weapons are assault, which is very important. If you're not going to get into melee that turn, you may as well advance, and that means that you can still shoot them, so definitely good to have. For the Sentinel Blade, though, so pistol, 12-inch range, still 2 attacks, identical profile otherwise, so strength 4, -1, 2 damage each. Preferably you wouldn't use that, but again, the shield has some use, so, you're still getting your 2 damage attacks, not too terrible at all. In melee, though, that's where these guys, really pop. So that Guardian Spear is all of a sudden going to 5 attacks, strength 7, -2, 2 damage each. So fantastic. 5 attacks each on your basic battle, your quote-unquote basic battle line. Fantastic to have. The Sentinel Blade, also 5 attacks, strength 6, -2 AP, but only a single damage. So you are doing half the amount of damage, but it's not bad at all. Strength 6 is actually really good. For their abilities, so they got a pretty damn good ability. Stand Vigil. Each time they make an attack, you can reroll a wound roll of 1, just always. If you're within range of an objective marker, which I hope you are, you can reroll all the wounds. That is great. Again, you're almost getting 100% hit rate. All of a sudden, you're getting God knows what percent wound rate on top of that. Super duper strong. We love that a lot. On top of that, they also have a really good once per game ability, Sentinel Storm. So once per battle in your shooting phase, after you've shot, you can shoot again. You bring a max size squad of these guys, all of a sudden you're getting 40 2 damage attacks going out. You would basically drop a tank with that. Like, that is crazy powerful, and also plays into why I like having the max 10-man squad. 42 damage attacks, like, that's not something you can ignore. Your opponent's going to have to play around that. He's going to be pretty scared, and you got pretty good range. 24-inch, pretty good right there. For their war gear, so I mentioned earlier, you can bring the Presidium Shield. I actually like this. So originally when I was looking at the unit, I was like, nah, you know, you would never do that. What it does, so you have to trade out your spear, and it gives you a Sentinel Blade and the shield, and it gives you a +1 to your wounds characteristic. Especially if you're doing the fat squads, the big old squads, I would highly recommend considering bringing like 2 of those, 1 or 2 of those, because there's a lot of weapons out there that are made for killing 3 wound infantry. Admittedly, they're not usually used to T6, it's usually set up for T5, but regardless, yeah, there's weapons out there that are like, their whole point is to kill Custodian Guard, essentially. All of a sudden, you toss some 4-wound guys in there with their 2-up save and all that, you mess up the math. I like it a lot. Again, if you're bringing a max squad, potentially even a small squad, I would bring at least 1, maybe 2 of those in pretty much every unit. Sure, it drops your damage output, but whatever, man, it's good enough. The pistols are still doing 2 damage range, so like, it's really not that bad. The other option, you can get a Vexilla. I believe you can do the shield and the Vexilla. You can. So if you're bringing a shield, you're also bringing this. This adds 1 to your objective control. What makes that great is if you somehow fail a battle shock test and you go to 0 objective control, nope, all of a sudden you still got 1. You add after the modifier or whatever it's called. So definitely, again, I would definitely bring that like every single time. These guys are amazing. These guys, yeah, they go S tier like right away. Ooh, technically, would they go above the shield captain? I mean, they make them work, but no. As good as they are, like, you do have other options, theoretically, if you wanted to. So I think I'll just put them, just like, yeah, we'll put them the end of S, but don't think that means that they're, like, the least valuable or whatever. Pretty much all these guys are equal in my book, just about. But yes, auto S here, really easy to put them up there, for sure. Next up, we got Custodian Wardens. So what's awesome about these guys, they can come in units of 3 to 6, so potentially they could be cheaper if you're going MSU. They'll be cheaper than even the Custodian Guard. Only they're 50 points per model, so it'll be 150 points at that point. They do also, so they get access to the spear if you want, but they can also bring the Castellan Axe. Range-wise, it's identical to the spear, so the strength 4, -1, 2 damage each. Melee, though, so it's only 4 attacks instead of 5 attacks, and only hitting on 3s instead of 2s, so you got some issues there. Strength 9, though, -1 AP, 3 damage each. Truthfully, I think you still stick with the spear every time. The fact you're getting an additional attack, and you hit on 2s, those two combined more than make up for the extra damage and extra strength that you get on the Castellan Axe. I think math hammer-wise, in almost every situation, I would assume the spear's going to be better, so I would stick with that most of the time. For their abilities, though, so the first one, so these guys are really resilient. That's, like, their thing to do. They, like, sit on objectives and just, like, you know, try to kill me. So the first one, Resolute Will. While a character is leading the unit, each time an attack targets this unit, if the strength is higher than their toughness, you subtract 1 from the wound roll. Again, that plays into them being resilient. One of the counters to Custodes, or one of like the few counters you're going to have, is high strength weaponry, high strength, high AP. This like directly negates that. I like that a lot. It does suck that you have to have a character attached to them, because that does add to the cost. That said, the characters are so freaking good, like chances are you'd have one anyways, unless you're going MSU. That said, the next one, so Living Fortress, this makes up for it. Even if you don't add a character to them, they're still ultra resilient. So Living Fortress, it is only once per battle, but at the start of any phase, you can use your ability. If you do, until the end of the phase, you get a 4-up Feel No Pain. I know I've mentioned in the other reviews, but a 4-up Feel No Pain is essentially the equivalent of doubling your wounds. All of a sudden, 50 points per model, 6 wound equivalent with a 2-up save. That is crazy good. These guys are going to be super hard to get rid of. I love that a lot, especially when you consider how cheap they are. Super duper ultra good. And then for War Gear, what's interesting, they don't have to replace anything to bring the Vexilla, so you just automatically bring that every time. So if they manage to get battle shocked, it doesn't matter as much. You're still going to have at least a little bit of objective control. These guys are fantastic. Even if you don't put a character on them, they're still like super strong. Ooh, do I put them S tier or just A+? So that the thing that holds them back is the whole like name the character or whatever. That said, nah, I think they still go S tier. I think they still go S tier. I would put them behind the Custodian Guard, like, barely. Again, because, like, to get the most out of them, you need that character, which adds on the cost. But that's really not that big a deal, because you probably wouldn't even attach one anyways. I like them a boatload. They're just as viable as the Guard. And I like how they look, too, like, the plume and whatnot. Like, yes, they look very similar to Guard, but I think they look a bit cooler with their axes and whatnot, even though you're probably bringing a spear. Okay, alright, Alaris Custodians, so some of the best Terminators in the game. These guys are 65 points each, so kind of spendy. They do lose an inch of movement, so only movement 5, but you get T7 and 4 wounds for that. They're also 2 objective control, so all those stats, fantastic. For ranged weapons, all of them get a ballistic grenade launcher. So I'd mentioned this earlier on the Shield Captain and Terminator armor. So it's Blast, 18-inch range, D6 attacks, strength 4, -1 AP, 1 damage each. Not bad at all. Helps clear off the screens. And then they too, just like the Wardens, they get to choose between the axe or the spear. Same as before. I think you go spear most of the time. I will say these are freaking Terminators. You want them to hit hard. Getting that 3 damage and that strength 9 would have a little bit of value to it. But I think if you do the math hammer, I'm pretty positive if you math it out, the spear is still going to be the best in like the vast majority of cases. So that's the way I would go. What's really cool, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, you can bring them in squads 2. So all of a sudden, these are like the cheapest custodians you can bring in your list. Definitely valuable there. Don't never forget that they got the deep strikes, so you can get them where you need them. These guys might be good for scoring your like secondaries and whatnot as well. So even more value there. For their abilities, though, these guys, this is what makes them some of the best Terminators in the game. So the first one, Slayers of Tyrants. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack towards a character, monster, or vehicle, i.e. all the things that Custodians struggle with, you can re-roll the wound roll, period. That is crazy good, especially with like the quality of attacks these guys are putting out. Wish they had precision, but super high quality, being able to re-roll those wounds, yep, definitely enjoy having that. Their second ability from Golden Light, so they're a little slow. This helps make up for it. Once per battle, at the end of your opponent's turn, you can put them into reserve, so then you can deep strike them on your turn. That's fantastic. Maybe it's turn 4, start of turn 5 or whatever. You put them into reserve, put them on an open objective or a flank that's weak or whatever you need. Score your secondary, all that sort of stuff. Super fantastic. I like that a boatload. Let's see. Okay, so one can bring a Vexilla and Misericordia, but you would have to trade out the spear for it. Honestly, I don't think that's worth it. Even to like keep the one objective control or whatever, nah, I don't think it's worth it. This is a smaller size unit, 2 to 6, so I don't think it's like as valuable. Yep, like I mentioned, these guys, some of the best Terminators in the game. Of course, they're going S tier. I'll put them above the Wardens, but below the Guard. I like them a lot. I would bring those every single list. At least one squad of just 2. Again, to score secondaries, do behind enemy lines, whatever you gotta do. Very good freaking unit. Virtus Praetors. Oof. Kind of feel bad for these guys. So, honestly, they kind of suck now. They got pretty nerfed. Last edition, these were everywhere. Nowadays, I don't think you'll really see them that often. They do bring a little bit of value that we'll get to in a second, but for the most part, you probably skip them most of the times. So, they do have 12-inch move. Again, very valuable. It's a slow army, so getting that, double the infantry movement, there's some value there. They do also have fly. You do have to remember, though, they're mounted. So all of a sudden, they're going to have a bunch of trouble with terrain and whatnot. So do bear that in mind. Fly is not nearly as valuable as it used to be. So even though you have that 12-inch move, you're going to need it to get around stuff. For weaponry, so you can choose between the salvo launcher or the hurricane bolter. I don't think you'd ever choose the hurricane bolter. So salvo launcher, it is 24-inch range, only a single attack. Strength 9, though, -2 AP, 3 damage each. So that's pretty decent damage. This is some of the, if you weren't bringing Forge World, this is some of your better damage units in the army. So I guess if you don't own Forge World, yeah, you're kind of forced to bring these guys. For melee, though, again, kind of sucks, man. They got the Interceptor Lance, so it does have the Lance ability, so will get +1 a wound, 5 attacks, only strength 7, only -2 AP, only 2 damage each, so it's not that much better than a spear. I guess you got Lance, so that does kind of help, but I would hope for a little bit more if I was going to bring these guys. I don't know if I mentioned it, but they're 90 points each, so you'd literally bring 2 Custodian Guard for the cost of one of these guys. Kind of painful. For abilities, so they do have turbo boost, so anytime they advance, you don't make a roll, they just automatically move 6 inches, so that's cool. That plays into the whole needing that movement. All of a sudden you got an 18-inch move guaranteed. Do be aware they don't even have assault on any of their weapons, so Not really sure how often you want to do that, because all of a sudden you're giving up all their damage output that turn, but potentially if it gets you an objective or whatever, like, okay, that's kind of valuable there. Their next ability is going to be Quicksilver Execution. So, once per battle, after this unit ends an advance move, you can choose one enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, and for each model in a unit, you roll a d6. On a 2-up, they suffer 2 mortal wounds, so that would seem very powerful, right? You know, you bring all 6 of them or whatever, and all of a sudden you're doing, include a character, all of a sudden you're doing 7, so 14 mortal wounds, potentially, obviously do a little less. Like, okay, seems good, but remember, you have to advance to do that. Again, you don't have assault, you don't have advance and charge. No, like, that's terrible. It should have just been in your movement. If you move over a unit, make it once per battle, because that is a lot of mortal wounds, but sadly, no, that's nothing to write home about. I will say, for the value they bring, so you can bring them in a squad of 2, so you can bring a pretty small unit. Unfortunately, it's still 180 points, so still pretty spendy. You attach the shield captain to him, like, okay, there's a little bit of play there, but overall, only 4 wounds as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. I would really hope for like 5 wounds or something. That's really not enough. These guys are still going to die. Anything that can kill like a normal custody should be able to kill these guys like just as easily, pretty much. They don't even get boosted toughness or anything, unfortunately. So I don't think they're trash. I don't think they're average either. I think they're like below average. They're like just above trash. The only things they're saving them are that movement and the whole fact that you can bring them in a small squad. Otherwise, I really do not like these guys. I would avoid them in most cases. Potentially, you combine them with a shield captain, and all of a sudden you got you got that extra movement or whatever. But otherwise, no, I don't like them at all. Alright, on to Forge World units. So first one, we're starting off with the opposite of the banger here. So Custodian Guard with the Adressite and Perathite spears. Excuse my pronunciation. So you can choose between either of them. The Adressite is going to be only 18-inch range, just a single shot. Strength 5, minus 2 AP, but 3 damage each. So that's cool. You get some, decent damage to go out there. The Perathite spear, so this is a Melta 2, only 12-inch range, though, on a 6-inch move unit. Strength 9, so not even strength 10, minus 4 AP, though, so that's pretty good. And D6 damage, potentially could be good. Kind of sucks, it's variable. A lot of times you might whiff it, but maybe you roll a 6. These guys are extremely expensive, I might add. We'll get into that in a second. For their melee, though, so the melee is okay. They're kind of just like the regular spears. 5, so both of them are identical. 5 attacks, strength 7, minus 2 damage each. So they're okay. They're just like a regular guard in melee. For abilities, so you still got the Stand Vigil, so you can reroll 1s. If you're near an objective marker, you can reroll all the wounds. Definitely going to want that for how much you're spending on these guys. The next one, No Foe Shall Stand. Once per battle, at the start of your shooting phase, you can use your ability. If you do, until the end of the phase, your ranged weapons get both lethal hits and ignores cover. Again, you're going to need it to help pay off these guys, because what holds them back, they can only be brought in units of 5, so you can't even bring them in 10 if you want it, and you can't bring them in squads of 4, so you can't do Super MSU. And for that cost, it's 325 points versus regular guard. 5 of them be 225 points. You're spending 100 extra points for a freaking one-shot, short-range, freaking variable damage like weapon. Nah, really not that good. These guys are terrible. I do think of all the custodies, yeah, I think they're going trash here. I would never bring these guys in a million years. Not for that cost. They really do not bring enough. Like, okay, sure, yeah, you can get some D6 weapons on your infantry. Nah, you got better options for that. They go straight to trash tier. I would rather bring an Armiger any day of the week over those guys. Next up, we got Sagittarium Custodes. So these guys have the same sort of drawback as the other unit, in that you can only bring them in a unit of 5, which kind of sucks. That said, they're not nearly expensive and have, like, just as good, if not better, shooting. So I do actually, like, these guys are actually, like, kind of valid. They're not terrible at all. So same stat line as the normal Custodes, T6, 3 wounds, whatever. They bring like a pseudo heavy bolter. So, Adrastus Bolt Culliver. Sustain hits 1, so that's chill. 36-inch range, so really good. 3 attacks each. Strength 5, minus 1, 2 damage each. So this gives you some reach for taking out the Marines and the infantry and that sort of stuff. So that's pretty valuable. Only 50 points per model, so only 5 points more than a regular guard. So that's kind of cool that you actually can get some like range firepower in your army for not too much more expensive. I will say they kind of suck in melee. They got the Misericordia, only 4 attacks, strength 5, -2, only a single damage each. So they'll hold their own, especially versus like crappy melee units. But you know, not really the best. Obviously, you want to keep them at range. These are the guys that you'd probably have like sit on your home objective, assuming you won't bring in Sisters or Exaction Squad or anything like that. For abilities, so you got Saturation Volleys. I actually like this a fair bit. In your shooting phase, after you shot a unit and at least one of those attacks hit, excluding monsters and vehicles, they're suppressed. Whenever that unit shoots until your next turn, you subtract 1 from the hit roll. Again, with your profiles and how good your saves are and everything, adding a -1 to hit on top of that, that actually is like really strong. It sucks you can't use it on vehicles because that's where it'd be like the most important for the most part. But I like that a fair bit. You're only paying 5 points more per model. Like, there is some play in that. Their other ability is going to be Disintegration Beams. Only once per battle. Start your shooting phase and use it. Until the end of the phase, you get Devastating Wounds. Pretty good. I mean, you're not throwing out the most amount of attacks, but you do have sustained hits, so that will kind of help there. With a squad of 5, like, yeah, you should get a few dev wounds through. Always nice to get mortal wounds. I would say in the mirror match that'd be, like, valuable, but remember, you got to 4-up Feel No Pain versus Mortal Wounds, so not the best there, but definitely not the worst. I kind of like these guys. I don't think they're like, you know, a must include. I don't even think they're like that great in the scheme of things, but ooh, do I put them in C? Honestly, I think they go in B tier. Like, I like them, and in fact, I like them more than the Sisters characters. Ooh. Yeah, I like them more than the Sisters. I'm going to put them top of B, honestly. I don't think they're bad one bit. If you happen to own the models or you want to convert them or whatever, like, yeah, there's some play in them. Maybe try them out and see how they do. Again, it gives you some ranged output that you don't normally have. Alright, and lastly, we got Aquilon Custodians. These guys freaking blow. These are terrible Terminators when you compare them to the normal ones. Reason being how freaking expensive they are. They're 80 points each. Also, too, you can only run them in squads of 3 to 6, not 2 like the other ones. Yeah, I do not like it at all. For the range weapons, they do have some interesting choices. So, Infernus Firepike, it's basically a flamer. Ignores cover, auto hit, 12-inch range, d6 attacks, strength 6, which is pretty good, -1 AP, only a single damage, not the best ever. You do a Storm Bolter, yeah, it's rapid fire 2, 24-inch range, strength 5, -1, 1 damage. And then the last one, the one you probably would bring, Twin Radrith Destructor. So twin linked, 18-inch range though, only a single attack, strength 6, -2, 3 damage each. So that's cool. You can get some like pretty decent damage coming out of your Terminators. For melee, you can choose between the Power Gauntlet or the Power Talon. You would always do the Gauntlet. I'm not even sure why the Talon's an option. 5 attacks, strength 8, -2, 2 damage each. So it's okay. It's basically a spear with a little better strength. For 80 points each, I would hope for a little better than that. For their abilities, so Heavy Assault Infantry. Each time you're making a range attack versus the closest eligible target, you reroll a Wound Roller 1. I mean, you're going to need it, again, to help pay off this unit, but could be better. Kind of sucks that it has to be the closest unit. They also got From Golden Light. So once per battle, at the end of your opponent's turn, if you're not within engagement range, you can go into Strategic Reserves. So that's pretty good, but I'd rather bring the other guys like in a heartbeat. Yeah, these guys suck, and in fact, I do, honestly, I think they belong in trash tier, along with the Adrosite Spears. Really not good at all. I'd put them bottom of trash tier. Like, I would never bring those over the other options you got, the Alaris and whatnot. So kind of sad to see him suck, but what can you do? Agamatris Custodians. So these are the Forge World Bikers, the Forge World Praetors. So the exact same profile, 12-inch move, T6, 4 wounds, all that crappy stuff. For range weapon, so these guys are more expensive, by the way. It's not much more expensive, but they're more expensive, 95 points each. And again, you can only run them in squads of 3 to 6, not 2 to 6. So that kind of holds them back right there. They do have an okay weapon, so the Errathic Devastator, 18-inch range, only a single shot, strength 7, -2, 3 damage each. So that's chill. Again, you get the 3 damage. That's okay right there. And then they do have the same Interceptor Lance. So they got the Lance rule, 5 attacks, strength 7, -2, 2 damage. So it's okay. They'll do all right in melee. For their abilities, so they too have the turbo boost, so auto 6-inch advance. They also have Implacable Vanguard. Once per battle in your shooting phase, after you shot, if you're not within engagement range, you make a normal move of up to 6 inches. You can't declare charge after that. Kind of sucks it's only 6 inches. I'd much rather have 12 inches, but you can, like, hide them behind cover, so shoot, and then fire and fade and hide behind cover, so there's some value there. I don't think they go in trash tier. Like, they're not as bad as the other guys, because they do have a little bit of value with the 3 damage attacks and whatnot, and they're not that much more expensive. Unfortunately, though, nah, they go in D tier. They go behind the normal Praetors. These guys, you know, they can hang out together on their cool little bikes. And last up, we got Venatari. Whew, how the mighty have fallen. These guys used to be one of the best options, at least from Forge World, that they were able to bring. These guys have the exact same issue as the Aquilons. Freaking expensive, and they don't even have a Terminator profile. These guys are the same cost, 80 points each. You can bring them in squads of 3 to 6. They do have some interesting stuff, so 10-inch moves, so that's pretty good. They get the Venatari Lance, so it's funny. Everybody used to bring the Kinetic Destroyers, the pistols. Unfortunately, you're going to want to rip those off your models if you happen to put them on there and change them with the Lance. So range, it is going to be Assault, which is great. 24-inch range, 2 attacks, only strength 4, -1, but 2 damage each, so not too terrible at all. And melee too, so it's basically like a spear. 5 attacks, strength 7, -2, 2 damage each, so kind of average for Custodes, average both ranged and melee, so that kind of stinks. For abilities though, so you do have Strike from the Skies. Basically, you're able to shoot and charge in a turn where you fell back, so that's okay. Again, if you run into a screen or something, you're able to go around them. That said, you do have Fly, so hopefully you've been able to fly over them, but maybe they charge you first, so I can see how that could have some value. Their other ability, I actually like this one a lot, Swooping Dive. Once per battle, you can target this unit with a rapid ingress stratagem for free. You can even do it if somebody else had used that. So that's cool if you want to spend a boatload of points and bring 2 squads of these guys. You rapid ingress the first and then do the second one for free. Rapid ingress, one of the best stratagems in the game in my opinion. So I do like that a fair bit. Unfortunately, these guys are so freaking expensive, I do not think you ever really bring them. They're not the worst thing ever. That movement's pretty valuable, the fly is pretty valuable, all that sort of stuff, but I am going to put them... I think I put them bottom of D tier. Yeah, I really I would never bring them myself. 80 points each is ridiculous for what you're getting. I would way rather bring 2 guard or some wardens or pretty much literally anything else just about. Alright, on to the Sisters of Silence. So, to start off, we got Prosecutors. So these guys are cheap as hell. These are the cheapest ones. What's cool, too, you can bring them in a itty-bitty little squad of 4 models. I believe they're only 10 points each, so all of a sudden, Custodes have a native option for little MSU squad. Only 40 points to bring these guys and just have them sit on an objective. I think you'll see them quite often exactly for that. That said, don't forget that you can bring Agents of the Imperium and that sort of stuff. So honestly, an Exaction squad would probably outperform these guys, but if you don't own that squad, these guys are just as valid. For profile, extremely basic. These guys are super basic. So 6-inch move, T3, 3-up save with no invul, only a single wound. They do have a 6-up leadership, which is really good, and then 2 objective control, also really good, especially if you're doing a smaller squad. For ranged weapons, they just got a basic bolt gun, and then melee, just a close combat weapon, so really nothing to write home about. For their abilities, so like all the sisters, they get the 3-up Feel No Pain versus psychic attacks. And they also have Purity of Execution. Each time you make an attack versus a Psyker unit, you get Precision and Devastating Wounds. So that's actually pretty good, especially if you were to bring a bigger squad. I shouldn't say pretty good, but it's okay. A lot of units, so maybe it's an army that's not even known for having Psykers. Well, a lot of times their character just happens to have a Psyker keyword. They may not even realize it, and they attach it to a unit. All of a sudden, you're going to be able to put all those shots into just that character alone. So, pretty decent. I wouldn't expect it to do that much damage, but if it's a weaker one, yeah, you might be able to pick it off. Again, their whole thing is being really cheap. 10 points per model isn't bad at all. I will say, when you compare it to other units that have similar roles, so just cheap infantry, you can get cheaper ones that, are better as well. So unfortunately, I can't place them too high. Again, their whole thing is being cheap, and it does bring a lot of value to Custodes. I will rate them internally, so I'm not going to rate them versus Exaction Squad or anything. If I did that, they'd drop pretty low. Again, bring an Exaction Squad if you can. But for internal balance, Custodes only, honestly, I think they go in B tier. You probably bring them in a list, even though they're not that high rated. Again, you just sit them on objective, use them for screening, hopefully use them as a distraction. It'd be great if your opponent's shooting these guys and not your other guys. So yeah, I'm just going to put them, they're just solid B. honestly, I'll put them above the characters, because I would bring them before I brought a character. I don't know if I'd bring them above Sagittarium. Well, I would, because they're cheap, but I still like Sagittarium better. So we'll just say solid all around, just middle of B tier. For the next squad, we got Vigilators. So these are the melee version of Sisters. These guys are actually pretty decent in melee for the cost. Now, they are quite a bit more expensive. These guys are 50% more expensive, so 15 points per. Exact same profile. For weapons, though, you got Executioner Greatblade. So Anti-Psyker 4-up. If you haven't noticed, these guys hate freaking Psykers. Devastating Wounds. So those two combined versus a Psyker unit, you'll get a decent amount of mortal wounds. Speaking of, 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s, strength 5, -2, 2 damage each. So versus normal units, like, they'll do alright, they'll kill Marines and whatnot. Versus Psyker unit, that's when they really go up in value. Again, they got the 3-up Feel No Pain, but they also have Deft Parry, so each time a melee attack targets this unit, you subtract 1 from the hit roll. That's okay. They don't have the best save, so they'll probably still die like flies, but if you're fighting like a unit that's not, if you're fighting Tau or something like that, we're not really good in melee, this makes them like terrible in melee, and these guys might actually survive. I will say, so I don't like their point cost. You can still run them in itty bitty little squads of 4, but that 50% point cost, the fact you gotta get them into melee as well, the fact that they, that they cost more, that you probably need a character, the Knights Ensure, to like really get the most out of them, unfortunately that's gonna hold them back a little compared to the Vigilators, in my humble opinion. So honestly, I think they just go C tier. Save them for the fun list. Don't bring them for the competitive. I would almost never bring them in a competitive list, personally. And then lastly, for the Sisters, we got Witch Seekers. I like these ones a decent bit. So they have Scouts, so that's fantastic. You get that extra movement. On top of that, they also have the Witch Seeker Flamer. So this gives you some Overwatch play. So Flamer ignores cover, auto hits, 12-inch range, D6 attacks, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage. So it's not the best thing ever, but potentially you can pick off a few models on an infantry. Maybe, maybe even a vehicle comes in. You throw enough dice at it, potentially you do a couple wounds to it, don't get me wrong. No melee to speak of, they got close combat weapon, don't really want to do that. For their abilities, so again, 3-up Feel No Pain for Psychic, but they also have Sanctified Flames. Each time this unit shoots, after the shot, you select one enemy unit that was hit by 1 or more, so guaranteed to be hit. They're flamers after all. Must take a battle shock test. We've gone over a million times how much that sucks. It's in your shooting phase as well. I guess you could do an Overwatch. I guess you could do it on their turn, I suppose. But battle shock, too many ways to ignore that. Really not that valuable. Same issue as the other ones, they are more expensive, 15 points. That said, like, spoiler alert, there is a Rhino you can toss them in, and it does have fire in port, or does it have fire in ports? Oh, it does not have fire in ports. That might be a typo, though. Either way, you got a Rhino. You do have the Scouts move. You can give them the character, give them the plus 2-inch movement as well. So suddenly you got 8-inch move with the 6-inch Scouts. So you have the chance to get them where you need them. That said, at the end of the day, again, we're trying to run these as super cheap squads. You can bring them as a 4-man again. But I think, as much as I like those Flamers and the Overwatch play and all that, I think they go in C along with the Vigilators. I will put them above them because, it's a Flamer. I happen to like Flamers, so we'll put them right there. Not a terrible unit, but not the best. Alright, on to the vehicles. So, the Rhino, we were just talking about this guy. So, super cheap. This guy's 75 points, so it's cheaper than a lot of Rhinos you see. Excellent profile. I mean, it's a Rhino, but 75 points. So, 12-inch move, T9, a 3-up save, 10 wounds. All those are fantastic. You can and will give them a Hunter Killer missile. It's only once per battle, but 48-inch range, hitting on a 2, strength 14, so even Knights are wounded on 3s, minus 3 AP, D6 damage, so that's excellent to have. Sucks it's only 1 shot. If it wasn't 1 shot, like, this model would be almost worth bringing, like, just for that, at the 75 points, but not bad at all. You also got the Stormbolter, of course, and then Armored Tracks. They're terrible, but I love them because running over people, like, you should do it if you can. So it can only carry Sisters of Silence, and then otherwise it's just a basic Rhino. It's got the self-repair, so in your command phase, regain a wound, and it does have the Feel No Pain versus psychic attacks, which is kind of cool. The thought of like a Rhino, like, repelling psychic attacks, I kind of like that from like a fluff perspective. This is actually really good. It does detract from, again, the whole point of these are mainly there, in my opinion, for being cheap and cheerful. So you are adding a lot of the costs. That said, you can get your flamers where they need to be. If you do like the vigilators, you think maybe their melee is like worth it for how cheap they are. Like again, this gives you another way to get up there. There's also the obvious play of, well, not obvious, but the common play of you load them up with the infantry, you sit on objective and wait for the opponent to shoot it. Like you don't care what happens beyond it, just sit on objective. They shoot it, all these guys pop out, and boom, you still hold the objective. So lots of like value in those regards. 75 points, like, this is actually really damn good. I'm gonna put it goes like bottom of B tier. I don't know how often you actually bring it, but like when you consider the profile and the cost and the hunter killer, I really like, yeah, I think it's solid. I think it's a pretty solid model for sure. Alright, the Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought. So this guy's kind of spendy. It's 185, I want to say. Let's double check. Yeah, 185 points, so pretty spendy, unfortunately. They have terrible move. 6-inch move is horrific, especially on a vehicle. Like, we don't like seeing that. T9, I wish it was T10, but it makes sense. It is a Dreadnought. It does have a 2-up save, only a 5-up invul, but 10 wounds, so all those are pretty good. For weapons, not the best. So he comes with a Combi Bolter, and then either the Karis Pattern Assault Cannon or the Multi-Melta. I think you'd bring the Multi-Melta like every single time. Anti-vehicle is one of our weaknesses, so definitely want to have that in there. It is Melta 2, only 18-inch range, which sucks with a 6-inch move, but you should be able to get like in range turn 1, at the latest turn 2. 2 attacks, hit on 2s, which is fantastic. Only strength 9, minus 4 AP, one of the best in this army. D6 damage. So not terrible in any regard, in that sense. He does also have the Contemptor Combat Weapon, so this will be 5 attacks, again, hitting on 2s, great. Strength 12, so anti-vehicle, minus 2 AP, 3 damage each. So this guy does bring some value to the army, like, in that regard, the whole being able to hurt tough stuff, something you often struggle with. I do like that a fair bit. For abilities, he has a really good one. Unyielding Agent. The first time this model is destroyed, don't remove it from play, and don't resolve the Deadly Demise. At the end of the phase, so that's great, roll a d6 on a 2-up, it stands back up with d6 wounds remaining. That is great. That means that this guy, so it's end of the phase, remember, so unless they're able to directly charge it afterward and like take care of it that way, this guy's like near guaranteed to make it in the next turn. So definitely a lot of value there. I will say, though, 185 points for a 6-inch move model that just has, like, a standard multi-melta, not strength 10 or any of that stuff, could be way, way, way better. That holds it back a boatload, unfortunately. Way too expensive for what you're getting there. I have seen a lot of people, a fair amount of people talk about there's a strategy of you bring like 3 of these guys and you just rush them up a flank. I do like that idea because the whole they stand back up at the end, like, yes, that will screw up a few opponents, but I think you're spending way too much on that. Unfortunately, I don't think that's really like the most competitive thing. That said, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Go try it. The models look awesome. I've always liked Contemptors for sure. The fact he said on 2s with like everything is great as well. Unfortunately, so it's not the worst model ever, definitely not the best. I think it does just go in C tier, maybe really low B tier, like maybe I could see the argument if you're doing the whole, like, you know, bank on them, stand back up after. That is really interesting. I do like that a fair bit. Ooh, do I put them above the... You know, I'll split the diff. I'll put them behind the flamers, but above the melee, just because, you know, we're talking melee here. They got to get into it to actually get any worth. This guy, he'll be able to hit, you know, from 24 inches away when you count his movement and all that. So, not the best unit ever, unfortunately, but you could make it work if you put in the effort. Next up, Venerable Land Raider. So this guy's 260 points, so costs a fair penny, but he brings some pretty valuable stuff. So you do have the Las Cannon, so you got Godhammer Las Cannon, 48-inch range, 2 attacks each, hitting on 2s, great. Strength 12, minus 3, d6 plus 1 damage. Getting Las Cannons in your Custodes army definitely has a lot of value there. He can also bring the Hunter Killer Missile, so just like the Rhino, the Strength 14, minus 3, d6 damage, only single use, but again, hitting on 2s, that's fantastic. That gives you a little bit of anti-knight. On top of that, you got the Twin Heavy Bolter, so 36-inch range, sustained hits 1, twin linked, only 3 attacks, but strength 5, minus 1, 2 damage. So this guy's putting out a decent amount of hurt, especially for Custodes. Let's see how many Las Cannons he can bring. So excellent. So he can bring 2 Godhammer Las Cannons, so you get 4 Las Cannon shots. There's definitely some value there, even at the 260 points. Movement's not bad either. So 10-inch move, T12, the best in the army. 2-up save, no invul, but with 2-up it's not that important. 16 wounds, so ultra resilient. 5 objective control as well, so he'll sneak away from, he'll sneak it from, itty bitty squad or character, whatever. Don't count on that too much. Of course, you got the assault ramp ability as well. So after a unit disembarks from this model, after it's made a normal move, they are still eligible to declare a charge that turn. For Custodes especially, extra valuable. I will say too, you can just bring, it says this model can transport 6 Custodes infantry, period. So doesn't matter if they're Terminators or any of that stuff. It does kind of stink it's only 6 and not 12. Granted, I could see why they didn't do that. But that's cool, man. You get 6 freaking Terminators in this bad boy and drop them off and then charge out of them. Definitely a whole lot of value there. Again, that freaking las cannon is really good. Giving you some anti-tank across the table. I actually like this guy a fair bit. I don't normally rate Land Raiders that high because they're so freaking expensive. For Custodes, yeah, man, I think he's super valid. In fact, I was thinking like top of B. Honestly, I put him A. Maybe even above Valerian. He is expensive, so you're not really going to bring him like that often, because you can buy a lot for 260 points, but again, man, if you have like 0 anti-tank, maybe you don't own any Forge World or any of that stuff, yes, the Land Raider's definitely worth consideration. Not the worst unit ever. Definitely like that guy. It looks good in gold too. Alright, next up we got the Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought. Same issue as the other guy. 6-inch move, that's terrible. The T9, 2-up save, 10 wounds, so like that's okay, but 6-inch move really freaking hurts. This guy's like mainly a melee unit too, so that's even worse. You gotta somehow get across the table into melee. He doesn't come back to life either, so like, your odds of actually getting there, not the greatest ever. He does have an Achilles Dread Spear, so for range, it is only 12-inch range, only a single attack, does hit on 2s, of course. Strength 9, -2, 3 damage each, so it's okay. I guess you'll kill a Possess. You can also give it the Twin Adrathic Destructor, twin-linked, 18-inch range, again, only a single shot, strength 6, -2, 3 damage each, so, that gives you a little bit more. His weapon loadouts, yeah, okay, the weapons get a little funky. What was it? Yeah, I don't think... That's right. Okay, no, I was wrong. You can bring the spear on top of the weapons. Me, personally, I would probably bring 2 Twin Adrathic Destructors, just so you get a decent amount of 18-inch range, 3 damage attacks. Sucks that they're strength 6. That's gonna, bounce off knights pretty quickly. But again, elite infantry, or if you roll lucky or whatever, it'll plink a few wounds off stuff. The Dread Spear in melee, so it does have the lance ability, which is great. 5 attacks, strength 12, excellent. -2 AP, D6 plus 1 damage, so he does give you some anti-tank. You gotta get into melee first, but yeah, he gives you some anti-tank versus even a toughness 12 knight. You'll be winning on 4s. Everything else you'll basically be winning on 2s. So yeah, he can definitely do some work when he gets in there. He's relatively cheap. I want to say he's 155. Let's double check. Yeah, 155 points, so cheaper than the other guy. For abilities, so he has Dread Foe. Each time this model is selected to fight, you can select one enemy unit with engagement range, and you roll a d6. If you charge, you add 2 to it. On a 4 to 5, so not even a 2-up, but a 4 to 5, they take D3 mortal wounds. On a 6-up, they take 3 mortal wounds. So again, not even 3 plus D3. So that kind of sucks. It's just a couple mortal wounds. One attack that gets through is going to do more damage than those mortal wounds. Granted, if they're like 1 wound infantry or whatever, it's kind of okay. And if you charge, okay, then you will get on a 2-up. Yeah, I don't like this guy. I don't really like him at all. That slow movement just holds him back so much. I think, I wouldn't say he's trash or nothing, but yeah, he goes down in D tier. Truthfully, I think he goes behind the, Praetors. Probably behind the, Agmatis ones, too. Does he go... Yeah, I'll put him above the Venatari. Potential, I could see some people arguing that he belongs higher, because he does give you anti-tank, but again, you gotta get in there. I guess the best way to do this guy would potentially be to reserve him, bring him in turn 2 or turn 3 or whenever. Maybe that's the best way to do it, so you get him across the board. Most of his range, pretty short range too, so I could see the value in that. But again, yeah, I don't really like that guy. Maybe if he's a bit cheaper, maybe then I'd consider him. The Palace Grav Tank, this thing sucks. I don't understand this thing. Doesn't when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, it's a transport. Like, that's why. No, not a transport. Just a crappy little pallet scrap tank. So 120 points, fairly cheap. He does have 12-inch move and fly, so okay, there's a little value there. Only T8. Wish it was T10. Does have a 2-up save, though. Again, only 9 wounds, so not the best there. He does have, for range weapons, he has the Twin Arachnus Blaze Cannon. So it is dev wounds and twin linked, so that's okay. 24-inch range, 8 attacks, hit on 2s, of course. Strength 5, -1, 1 damage each. Not the best ever, like... Really, why would I bring this if he's like barely doing any? So, okay, I do like maybe 3 to 4 damage if I'm lucky to somebody. Like, really not that good. For his ability as a Merciless Hunter, in your shooting phase, each time this model makes an attack that targets a unit that's below half strength, add 1 to the wound roll. That too sucks. I guess it'll help you finish off a unit, but like, again, man, he barely does any damage output at all. Literally, the only use I see with this guy is that 12-inch move and the fact that he's T8. That's not even that much better than your Terminators, though. Yeah, I don't like this guy, like, one bit. Do I put him in trash tier? That is the question. Honestly, I really do not like this guy. I guess he's, like, really cheap. The 120 points, I guess, sort of saves him from going in trash. Yeah, we'll put him, like, very bottom of D tier. Aside from the model looking cool, and again, that move, like, yeah, man, I don't see any point with that. Should have given him a transport capacity. At least let me bring, like, 3 Custodes or something. Alright, next up, oh, the Telemon. This guy used to be... Okay, so I love this guy's model. He's one of my favorite, like, Custodian models, period. He's just a big hulking freaking dreadnought. I love that. What's hilarious, too, he has better movement than the other dreadnoughts, even though he's, like, a big hulking one. So that is kind of silly. So 8-inch move, T10, which is excellent. 2-up save and a 4-up invul. Again, excellent. 12 wounds. These are all really good stats. Unfortunately, he's pretty spendy. He's 235 points, a bit more than I'd like to spend. His profile's not bad, but his weapons that kind of hold him back. So you got a few choices. You know, you can choose between a bunch of them. Personally, I would probably stick with the Liastus Accelerator Culverin. So it is 48-inch range, so you're hitting across the table, 4 attacks each, strength 9, only -1 AP, but 3 damage each. So that's cool. You can get some 3 damage attacks, again, across the table. You can also give them flamers if you go with the Castus. So actually, yeah, you would want to do a mixed profile, I would think. So both the Fist and the that Accelerator Culverin, that's probably the way I would do it. You can also give that Fist, you can give it a Flamer, so that's chill. The Flamer's actually okay. 12-inch range, only D3 attacks, that's what kind of sucks. But strength 7, -2, 1 damage each. It's not the best thing ever. Really wish it was D6, but, you know, it might kill an infantry or two. His Telemon Castus, so his Fist, basically, 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 12, which is excellent, -2 AP, 3 damage each, so he'll do some hurt in melee, but again, we're talking 235 point unit here. You can get better units for that cost if we're being honest. His ability, though, is really good. His ability is kind of what saves him. Guardian Eternal. Each time attack is located to this model, you subtract 1 from the damage characteristic. With his T10, 2-up, 4-up, and 12 wounds, like, yeah, he'll survive a decent bit. His extra movement also helps him quite a bit. Like, he makes him better than most of the other options. Unfortunately, again, you can get better units for that cost for over 200 points, so I can't put him too high. I think I'll put him right with the Venerable Contemptor. Do I put him behind or above? Let's see. That's a tough one, I would say. I'll put him... He's equal, honestly. I'd say he's equal to it, but I'm going to put him behind. Actually, I lie. I like his model too much. I'll put him above him. But they're basically equal in the scheme of things. Truthfully, the Venerable is probably better due to the fact that he can stand back up. So that does give you a bit more value, like guarantee. Well, helps guarantee he makes it in the next turn. But Telemon, not bad at all. Again, he got that -1 damage. That's pretty damn good. In fact, you know what? You could play the Telemon. You could bring him in your list. I don't think it's the most competitive thing ever, but, you know, you could make him work. So I'll put him top of C. We'll be nice. Again, the model looks freaking sick. So, all right, he earned it. He earned it. Ooh, all right. So now we're on to the real big boy. This is the Forge World model that you need to consider. So, Caladius Grav Tank. He is kind of spendy. 215 points, but cheaper than the Telemon. 10-inch move with fly. T11, that's excellent. 2-up save with a 5-up invul, 14 wins, so hot diggity dog, we're looking at a really good profile here. That T11, like, takes him up a notch. You basically need anti-knight weapons to actually wound this guy, like, consistently. For his weapons, so he comes with the twin Elastrius Accelerator Cannon, twin Ballstrom Cannon, and the Armored Hull. You can trade out that Elastrius for the Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon, which you're going to do every single time. Speaking of which, that twin Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon, so twin linked, 48-inch range, excellent, 4 attacks, strength 12, -3, d6 plus 2 damage with that twin linked. So you're getting like pretty consistent anti-vehicle damage out there. This guy is excellent for his cost, at least for Custodes. Like, you need that anti-tank, anti-monster, anti-big stuff. This guy's able to bring it. He also has a good ability that keys off of that. So advanced firepower. If you bring his original loadout, so the twin accelerator cannon, anytime you hit a unit excluding monsters and vehicles, you get lethal hits. When you bring the good gun, the heavy blaze cannon, versus only monsters and vehicles, you get the lethal hits. So, you know, not the best thing ever, but it is useful. That does help with the efficiency. This guy is kind of spindy. For real, though, you're going to sit him, like, in the back of the board, I would think, and just shoot across the table at, you know, knights, land raiders, whatever you're going to need to take out. This guy, that's what he's here for. I like this guy a boatload. I think if you have access to the model, you run him every time. I'm going to put him in S tier. I think he belongs up there. We'll put him, it's hard to decide. It's hard. They're all so freaking good in the S tier. We'll just put him, even though I'm putting him at the rear, I've said it a couple times already, most of these guys are near equal or are equal. But yes, we'll toss him up in S tier. That's right where he belongs. I like that guy a boatload. All right, the Contemptor Galatus. This guy, he's like melee. Like, that's like his thing, is being melee. Again, though, we're talking about a melee unit with a 6-inch move. That is brutal. He does have a shield, though, so only T9, 2-up save with a 4-up invul, though, and 10 wounds, so that's okay. The 4-up invul is, like, actually really strong. Definitely like seeing that on your units when you can get access to it. Is Galatus Warblade, so it does have a range profile that's basically a flamer, so ignore cover, auto hit, and twin linked, so that's kind of cool. Only 12-inch range, d6 attacks, strength 6, -1, 1 damage each. Not the greatest thing ever, but you'll be able to kill some chaff. In melee, though, so that's where this guy kind of shines. So 8 attacks, very good number, strength 8, -2, 3 damage each. So he's there to clear out like elite infantry. That's going to be like his specialty. Again, you got to get him there, 6-inch move. But when he gets there, yeah, he'll clap some cheeks when he gets in there. For his ability, he has Galatus Shield. Each time a melee attack targets this model, subtract 1 from the rune roll. Again, that's great. He is only T9. Wish he was T10, but, you know, can't win them all. But that's great versus, like, regular infantry that don't have the high enough strength. They're really going to struggle to hurt this guy. Win on 6s most of the times, so there is a little bit of value there. Unfortunately, we've been over a million times. He has issues with the movement. I forgot his cost, though. Let's look. 175. So he's more expensive than the other one, too. Unfortunately, yeah, I think it goes in D tier. Yeah, we'll put him along with the Achilles Dreadnought, just right there next to the little buddy. All right, and then we got the Coronis Grav Carrier. So this is a transport, a hovering transport, or fly, I guess I should say. So, pretty good movement, 12-inch move, really good toughness, T12, 2-up save, 5-up invul, 16 wounds, so this is like the Custodes version of a Land Raider, 5 objective control as well. He's cheaper than the Land Raider, he's only 200 points, so much cheaper than, 60 points cheaper than the other option. That said, unfortunately his weaponry is not nearly as good. So you can do the twin Arachnus Blaze Cannon. So it is devastating wounds and twin links, so those are pretty good. 24-inch range, only 8 attacks, strength 5, -1, 1 damage each, so really not the best ever. The other option, you got Twin Lastrum Bolt Cannon. Sustained hits, 36-inch range, only 3 attacks, strength 6, -1, again 1 damage. Really wish that some of those were multi-damage. He does have the Armored Hull, so you can run over some folks. Go ahead and do it. For his ability, though, so I do like his ability quite a bit. Fire support. In your shooting phase, after this model is shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of your attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly model that disembarked from this transport makes an attack, you can re-roll the wound roll. I do like it because, you know, again, you guys are going to hit most of the time. Being able to re-roll those wounds, very valuable to have. This guy can carry 8 Custodes infantry, period. So you can put 8 Terminators in there if you wanted to. That said, if I'm being honest, like, you would bring the Land Raider, like, over this guy pretty much every single time. I'm trying to think, is there any advantage this guy has? I guess he has a higher capacity, so give him that, and you do have the reroll wounds, but no, I'd much rather have the charge after movement thing, so unfortunately, not going to put this guy too high. He does have an awesome model. It's pretty big, as I recall, but he's not terrible. T12 is, like, handy to have. It's just the damage output, like, really holds him back. I'm going to put him, he's not terrible. Put him bottom of C tier. Alright, we're on to the last one. So, it's funny. When I was first looking at these guys, like, researching for this video, I was like, okay, these are memes. Like, you would never bring these. But then you wonder, you're like, you know, okay, yes, they're sort of a meme, but they're like they're like flying Imperial Knights. That's kind of cool. Way too expensive, though. So, the Orion Assault Dropship, this guy's 690 points. Way too expensive, even with the cool profile. And that said, so the cool profile, so he does have hover. So even though he's an aircraft, you're going to hover this guy. 20-inch move, T12. 2-up save, 5-up invul, 22 wounds. So all those, like, damn, that's a lot. But again, you're paying way too much for it. For weaponry, let's look. How does... Okay, so he just comes with everything. So he's going to come with 2 heavy blaze cannons, 2 Lastrum bolt cannons, and 2 heavy bolt launchers. So, boatload of freaking damage output coming from this guy. Speaking of which, so you got 2 Arachnus heavy blaze cannons, so combined it'd be 36-inch range, 8 shots, hitting on 2s, of course, strength 12, minus 3, d6 plus 1 damage. Stinks that this guy costs so much, because that would be ultra valuable to add to your list. It'd be great if you could add that in there. For the heavy bolt launcher, so again, 2 of them, 36-inch range, it'd be 12 plus 2d6, so 12 plus 7, so 19 shots normally. Strength 7, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each, so awesome, you're going to boatload of multi-damage. And then finally the bolt cannons, sustained hits, 36-inch range, be 6 shots combined. Strength 6, minus 1, 1 damage each. So, not the best, but hey, you know, every bit helps. I should mention, too, that the heavy bolt launcher, that's blast as well. So that's awesome. You're getting some blast 2 damage attacks out there. I do like that a fair bit. Funnily enough, this guy still has the armored hull, so he would get 9 attacks, hit on 4s, strength 9, no AP but 1 damage. It's cute, so figured I'd mention it. For abilities, so Assault Dropship, if a unit disembarks from this transport before it moves until the end of the turn, that unit is eligible to declare in a turn in which it advanced. So that's kind of cool. This guy can carry 12 infantry. He can also carry 1 of the dreadnoughts, most of them. If you do that, though, it does cut his transport capacity down to 6. For the price you're paying, I would hope that you could transport more than that. Like 20 models would be kind of cool. Again, he has a boatload of damage output, but that cost really holds him back. I could see like a meme list where you run him mainly as like a distraction Carnifex, because he will take some firepower to take out. Kind of sucks that he doesn't get the minus 1 to hit ability. That does kind of stink, but you know, whatever. Way too expensive. As cute as he is, way too expensive for what you're bringing. He's not trash by any means, but he goes in D tier. Yeah, I would bring pretty much any of these before I brought this guy. Also, too, the model is freaking gigantic, so good luck fitting it on the table. But it does look kind of cool. And then lastly, we got the Ares gunship. So this one's, I want to say 580. Let's double check. Yeah, 580. So cheaper. This guy does not have transport. He's all about shooting. He does have 2 of the heavy blaze cannons, a single Magna blaze cannon, and then the armored hull. The heavy blaze cannon, just like before. So with 2 of them, 8 attacks, strength 12, minus 3, d6 plus 1 damage. So you're getting 8 las cannon shots. That's actually not terrible for the price. When you consider, too, that he also has a Magna blaze. So the Arachnus Magna blaze cannon, 48-inch range, really good. Only 3 attacks, but strength 18, minus 4, d6 plus 6 damage. So this guy is literally the most powerful shooting profile you have access to. So there is some value to it. Same profile as the other guy, by the way, so the T12, 2 up, 22 wounds, so he'll take some firepower. For his ability, he's got Infernus Firebombs. Each time this model ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit and moved over during that turn. Until the end of the turn, models in that unit do not get the benefit of cover. In addition, you roll a d6 for each model in that unit. For each 6, you do 1 mortal wound. Really wish that was like 5 ups or even 4 ups. I mean, come on, man, you're spending a lot on this guy, and he doesn't do much aside from shooting. Unfortunately, exact same issue as the dropship, way too expensive. He's more expensive than Imperial Knight, and you can soup in an Imperial Knight, so like, probably do that before you brought this guy. So unfortunately, he's going D tier as well. He belongs right next to his buddy. I would put him above the dropship for sure, but he belongs right there with him. Alright guys, well that's the list. Let's do a quick review and see if there's anything I'd want to change. So Shield Captain, Trajan, most of those guys, I do think they belong up top. Blade Champion, he is hard to rate. Truthfully, I do think, me personally, I'd bring a Shield Captain over him every time. I have seen other people say that he's like a must include. I like the Shield Captain better. Your stratagems, your really good stratagems, are really expensive, so you need that free CP right there. Let's see, Laris definitely belong in S. You know, Wardens, because they need a character, I could see them going into A+, but again, you can only bring, or you can bring the Min Squad of 3, which has a lot of value right there. I do like that a lot, so I will keep them in S tier. Calidus Grav Tank, he still belongs up there. I will put him above the Wardens, I guess. Again, if you have access to him, like me personally, I would bring this guy every single time. You need that that heavy firepower for sure. For A tier, you know, Dawn Eagle Jet Bike, as good as his ability is, yeah, I think he still belongs in A. Land Raider, though, honestly, I do like that guy. Getting the 4 las cannon shots and getting the being able to charge once you disembark, yeah, that does put him up a notch. I will put him in A+. Valerian, not a bad unit. It's just like, you know, he helps you in melee. You don't really need help in melee, so I do think he stays here. Solid all around, but you got way better choices. Sagittarium, they're not bad. Prosecutors, okay. Alright, I might have been too nice with the sisters, maybe. I think I will bump some of the characters down to C. We'll put a Leia down in C. I do think the Knights and Shura can stay up there. Rhino goes up there. Telemon. Okay. So I think I was a little rough on the Dreadnoughts. I think they're actually usable. Like, if I think about them more, I do think they're kind of usable. I will actually I'll put Telemon above the Rhino, I think. And the Venerable Contemptor, the whole getting up after it dies, like, okay, that has some pretty decent value. Maybe not the most competitive thing ever, but I do like it. I'll put him, I would bring it before I brought a Knights and Shura, most likely. So I'll put it mid B tier. Vigilators, yeah, you belong there. Coronavirus Grav Carrier, yeah. You know, the rest, I think I agree with. All right, the other Dreadnoughts, we'll bump up to C, because they all do bring, like, power. It's just that 6-inch move, man, that really holds them back quite a bit. Oh, and then, to think about it more, like, you would just bring a Knight before you brought either of the Ares or the Orion, so I will put them down in trash tier. I won't put them bottom of trash tier, that's where these guys belong, so we'll put them there. I do think the Rasite Spears go very bottom of trash. I freaking hate those guys. I also hate the Aquilon Terminators as well, though. All right, that is the list. Yeah, man, if you guys couldn't tell, like, Custodes have some crazy good options. Even their mid-tier stuff is still quite powerful. There's certain armies, if they don't have, like, the anti-tank or, like, good melee to counter you, with all the other stuff supporting these things as well, like, yes, you could totally play these. Just because I put them in mid-tier or whatever, doesn't mean they're necessarily bad. Again, it just means you got better choices. For real, you need to prepare for Custodes. If you're doing tournaments or even just like casual play with your friends, Custodes are an extremely popular army in my experience because they're so easy to get into, easy to paint, they look cool, all that sort of stuff. So do prepare for them. How are you going to deal with that fight first? You probably want some shooting. Probably don't want to get into melee with these guys for sure. Yeah, man, I expect we're going to see more high placings from these guys as time goes on. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, like, I don't see nothing like is obviously like ultra broken when I think about them. It's the fact that they get those really powerful stratagems for free. That is very powerful, but that's like a game-wide like issue, quote unquote, I guess you could say. A lot of armies get access to the free stratagems. I feel bad for armies that don't have access to it. I think that's kind of unfair and was kind of dumb on GW's part, because it's like it's becoming pretty obvious as you see more tournament lists and whatnot that the free stratagem is like, yeah, a lot of lists basically build their army around that little strategy. So maybe that's another counter you could think of. Anti-character like snipers. Yes, you'll have trouble getting through those saves and those profiles, but if you can take out the characters, that's going to hurt them a whole lot. That's going to eat up their CP all of a sudden. Maybe that too. The Agents of Vect. The whole making stratagems cost more. Invaluable versus Custodes. That is like an almost like if you can bring it and you expect to see Custodes at the tournament or wherever you're playing, I would strongly consider bringing those on the list. But yeah, overall, excellent army. I really want to get into them. I need to get like World Leaders, I think, is next on my list for army to own. I own every other Chaos army, so may as well get them as well. But after them, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Custodes are one of the armies I gravitate towards, because I do like them quite a bit. Their Forge World models are pretty sick as well. A lot of Forge World models, a lot of times they look derpy. Nah, they did pretty good with Custodes. Anyways, as always, let me know what you guys think, what you might have changed. Definitely let me know if I made a mistake. If you guys have any suggestions for the channel, I love hearing those. Multiple people have given me suggestions, and I put them in the video. The whole how I'm, like, not an idiot, and I actually show the tier list after each unit, that was a suggestion from somebody. Thank you very much. Like, it was kind of obvious that I should have done it from the beginning, and I regret not doing it from the beginning. But thank you, guys. That was, like, a super good tip, so I appreciate you doing it. If you guys haven't already, do please consider liking and subscribing. I hate to like sound like every YouTuber ever, but it's been pretty awesome, man. I love coming home, checking my phone, and seeing, you know, all the comments and the new subs I got. It really does feel pretty good. Hope this was useful to you guys. Whether you play Custodes or not, maybe you learned how to like counter them, or at least learn what they're going to do to you. But thank you guys for watching. Good luck out there, and have a great rest of your night, guys.